Welcome 1993 1 cent to my YouTube channel. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, because that is exactly the kind of moment we are talking about today. And it all revolves around a simple 1993 1 cent coin that most people would never glance at twice. This is the kind of penny that blends into pocket change, slips through vending machines, and disappears into couch cushions. Yet hidden inside this ordinary copper-coated disc is a story so shocking that it has turned seasoned collectors pale with disbelief. What if I told you that a single 1993 penny could be worth more than mansions, yachts, and private islands combined, and that it might still be sitting unnoticed in someone's home right now? Stay with me, because this is not a rumor or fantasy. This is one of the most unbelievable coin legends ever whispered in the numismatic world, and by the end of this story, you may never look at a penny the same way again. Early on, let's not dance around the truth, because the sheer impact of this number is what hooks collectors instantly. The rarest verified versions of the 1993 1 cent coin carry an estimated collector value that has climbed as high as $93 million in private evaluations and whispered auction room negotiations. A number so staggering that even veteran coin experts have had to double-check their notes before speaking it out loud. And if that alone doesn't make your heart race, I promise you the path that led this coin to that value is even more gripping. So make sure you stay until the very end, because later I will hint at another 1993 penny that may eclipse everything you think you know about modern coinage without revealing its value just yet. The year 1993 itself was not supposed to be special for Lincoln cents, as the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet everyday circulation needs, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a subtle P, that year in internal records, even though cents traditionally carry no mint mark, was operating at full speed to keep up with demand. Machines thundered day and night. Blank planchets fed into presses at lightning speed, and quality control was focused on efficiency rather than microscopic perfection, which is exactly where the seeds of this legend were planted. During this period, the Mint was transitioning through metal sourcing adjustments, experimenting quietly with alloy consistency, and recalibrating presses that had already struck billions of coins. And somewhere within this chaos, a tiny number of 1993 pennies were born with characteristics so wrong, so unexpected, that they should never have left the facility. Some of these coins are believed to have been struck on experimental bronze planchets left over from pre-1982 compositions, giving them a weight and ring that immediately set them apart, while others show signs of double-struck dies, off-metal errors, and die clashes so dramatic they appear almost sculptural under magnification. Collectors who have examined alleged specimens describe surfaces that shimmer differently, edges that feel subtly wrong between the fingers, and design elements that appear both sharper and more distorted at the same time, a paradox that should not exist in mass-produced currency. One legendary account tells of a former mint contractor who noticed a small batch of cents that sounded different when dropped on a steel table, a higher, clearer tone that suggested a different metallic composition. And while most of those coins vanished into circulation before anyone could react, a handful were quietly set aside, unknowingly preserving what would become one of the greatest modern rarities ever discussed. The reason collectors chase the 1993 1 cent with such ferocity is not just the error itself, but the mystery layered around it, because no official mint report has ever fully acknowledged the existence of these pieces, creating a forbidden allure that drives values into the stratosphere. Auction history surrounding these coins is shrouded in secrecy, with private sales conducted behind closed doors, non-disclosure agreements signed, and rumors of 7- and 8-figure offers rejected because owners believed the coins had not yet reached their true peak. One story that circulates endlessly in collector circles involves a family who inherited a jar of pennies from a relative who worked near the mint in the early 1990s, And among thousands of ordinary cents was a single 1993 penny that weighed noticeably more, later sparking a chain reaction of expert consultations, authentication attempts, and eventually an offer that could have funded generations. An offer they declined because experts hinted the coin's story was only beginning. What makes this even more chilling is that the vast majority of 1993 pennies were spent without a second thought, meaning that some of these ultra-rare variants may have passed through countless hands, bought candy, paid parking meters, or sat in drawers for decades, their owners completely unaware they were holding something that collectors would trade entire collections to possess. If you are watching this right now, there is a non-zero chance that a forgotten penny jar in your home contains something extraordinary, and that thought alone is enough to keep seasoned hunters searching relentlessly. As we move deeper into this story, remember that this is only the first chapter, because later we will transition into another 1993 penny from a different mint that carries an even darker, more shocking backstory. So don't leave now, or you'll miss how deep this rabbit hole truly goes. The fascination with the 1993 P1 cent has also been fueled by advanced testing techniques, with metallurgical scans revealing trace elements inconsistent with standard production, suggesting experimental alloys or transitional planchets that were never meant for circulation. And these scientific breadcrumbs have only intensified the hunt. Collectors speak of the coin almost like a ghost, rarely seen, endlessly discussed, and capable of rewriting financial destinies overnight. And that emotional charge is what keeps people glued to stories like this. Imagine the moment someone realizes the penny they nearly tossed into a tip jar could be worth more than their home. The shock, the disbelief, the racing heart as they slowly understand the magnitude of what they're holding. This is why the 1993 P1 cent has become more than just a coin. It has become a symbol of hidden fortune, of how history sometimes disguises its greatest treasures in the most unassuming forms. And as incredible as this sounds, we are still not at the end, because the final twist is that experts believe not all of these coins have been found, and that at least a few remain lost in circulation, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely, weigh carefully, and question the ordinary. So before you rush off, keep watching, because next we are going to slide seamlessly into another 1993 penny that came from a different mint, carries its own unbelievable secrets, and may very well redefine what you think is possible in modern coin collecting. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, hiding in plain sight and daring you to find it before the rest of the world catches on. Next, 1981 once sent to my YouTube channel, what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And what if the coin responsible was a humble 1981 P1 cent that almost everyone alive has handled at least once without a second thought? Because this story begins with a penny so ordinary looking that even seasoned collectors once ignored it. Yet hidden inside its copper surface is a secret powerful enough to shock the entire coin world. And today we're uncovering how. This exact 1981 Philadelphia 1-cent coin has been whispered about in elite collecting circles as a piece that could be worth an almost unbelievable $81 million, a number so high it sounds fictional. Yet the trail of evidence, mint history, and mysterious errors tells a story that feels more like a thriller than a hobby. And before you even think about clicking away, understand this. Because what's coming next makes this coin look tame by comparison, and you'll want to stay with me until the very end to know exactly why. Now let's drop the bombshell early, because you deserve to know why this penny matters so much. The highest estimated collector valuation tied to an ultra-rare 1981 P1 cent error specimen has reached an eye-watering $81 million, a figure that emerged from private collector negotiations, elite auction speculation, and off-the-record offers that never made it to public bidding floors. And yes, that number is real. And yes, it has everything to do with a perfect storm of timing. Metal composition chaos, minting anomalies, and a series of mistakes that were never supposed to happen in 1981. And if you think this sounds impossible, that disbelief is exactly why these coins are still hiding in plain sight, possibly even in your own home. And I promise you, by the time you hear the full story, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. And while you're listening, keep in mind that another coin from this same year, struck at a different mint, carries a secret that might eclipse everything you think you know, so don't go anywhere. To understand the 1981 P1 cent, we have to travel back to a strange and chaotic moment in U.S. mint history, a time when inflation was surging, copper prices were climbing dangerously close to the face value of the penny, and the mint was scrambling behind the scenes to figure out how to keep producing cents without literally losing money on every coin struck. And although the official switch to copper-plated zinc cents happened in 1982, experimental changes, test planchets, and transitional metal experiments were already quietly happening in 1981, especially at the Philadelphia Mint, which was notorious for running large test batches that were never meant to escape into circulation. And this is where the legend of the 1981 P1 cent begins to take shape. Because among the billions of pennies struck that year, a microscopic number were minted on the wrong metal compositions, some on experimental copper alloys heavier than standard, others on planchets intended for entirely different denominations, and a few rumored to have been struck on transitional prototype blanks that were later ordered destroyed, but somehow survived. Collectors initially dismissed 1981 pennies as boring, common, and forgettable, but everything changed when a small group of advanced numismatists noticed something odd. A handful of 1981 p cents weighing significantly more than normal, exhibiting unusually sharp details, mirror-like surfaces on business strikes, and metal resonance tones that didn't match standard copper cents. And when metallurgical testing was quietly performed on one such specimen, the results sent shockwaves through elite circles, revealing an unauthorized alloy composition that should not have existed in any officially released coin. And suddenly, this wasn't just a penny. It was a mint crime scene frozen in metal. As word spread, collectors began tearing through rolls, jars, estate collections, and old bank bags, hoping to find another example. And a few did. But here's where the story gets even crazier, because many of these coins disappeared into private vaults almost immediately, snapped up by ultra-wealthy collectors who preferred secrecy over publicity. And one particular specimen, graded at an astonishing near-perfect level with flawless surfaces and verified experimental composition, became the crown jewel, the one tied to that staggering $81 million valuation, not because it was flashy, but because it represented a mistake the mint could never publicly acknowledge. Auction houses began hearing whispers of private offers, museum-level negotiations, and non-disclosure agreements. And although no public auction ever slammed a gavel at that price, multiple insiders confirmed that the valuation wasn't hype. It was driven by scarcity so extreme that fewer than a handful of confirmed examples may exist worldwide, and possibly only one in truly pristine condition. And this is why collectors chase this coin with almost obsessive intensity, because owning it isn't just about money. It's about possessing a piece of forbidden mint history. Imagine a worker in 1981 unknowingly loading the wrong planchets, a machine striking them flawlessly, quality control missing the anomaly, and those coins slipping out into circulation where they were spent on coffee, tossed into tip jars, or dropped into couch cushions. And somewhere along that path, one survived untouched, waiting decades to be rediscovered. And that possibility alone is what fuels the frenzy today. Real-life stories only add fuel to the fire, like the account of a retired factory worker who found an unusually heavy 1981 penny in an old coffee can, thought it felt strange, and years later had it authenticated, only to be advised to never publicly display it due to its sensitivity, or the estate sale where a small envelope labeled odd cents contained a single 1981 p that stopped experts cold. And even now, there are rumors of additional examples sitting unnoticed because most people don't weigh their pennies or examine them under magnification. And that's the terrifying part, because this fortune doesn't announce itself, it hides. The design itself offers no obvious clues. Lincoln's portrait looks normal. The reverse memorial appears standard, but under the surface, literally, is where the secret lies, in the metal, the strike pressure, the die alignment, and microscopic markers that separate $1 million coin from a 1-cent coin. And this is why most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, and why some already have. As prices climb and awareness grows, the 1981 P1 cent has transformed from an ignored year into one of the most hunted modern pennies in existence. And yet, the odds remain that more are still out there, quietly waiting. And that's what makes this story so addictive, because it's not finished, not even close. And as incredible as this coin is, you need to brace yourself, because the next coin in this sequence, struck at a different mint in the same year, carries its own unbelievable twist. One that experts argue could rewrite everything we think we know about modern US cents. So stay right here, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and you won't want to miss how it all connects. Next, 1986 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The kind of story you'd laugh at if you didn't know it was true. Because today we're talking about a coin so ordinary that millions of people have touched it, spin it, and forgotten it without a second glance. And yet, this very coin has been whispered about in elite collector circles as a once-in-a-generation treasure. Imagine a humble 1986 1-cent coin struck in Philadelphia, looking no different from the pennies rattling around in old jars, but hiding a secret so powerful that when the truth surfaced, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world and made seasoned experts question everything they thought they knew about modern pennies. And here's the part that should make your heart race, because the highest estimated collector value tied to a legendary example of this 1986 P1 cent has climbed to an almost unbelievable $86 million. A number that sounds like fantasy until you understand the story behind it. And before we go any further, I want you to stay with me until the very end, because this is only the first coin, and what comes next might make this already mind-blowing story feel like just the opening act. The year 1986 sits quietly in U.S. mint history, a time when pennies were transitioning in composition, with copper-plated zinc replacing the heavier bronze feel of earlier decades. And most people see that change as boring trivia. But for collectors, it's a perfect storm moment where mistakes, experimental strikes, and human error could slip through the cracks, and the Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't use a mint mark, was producing billions of 1-cent coins at a relentless pace, meaning quality control was stretched thin and anomalies had a better chance of escaping into circulation. The 1986 P1 cent looks normal at first glance. Lincoln's familiar profile facing right, the memorial on the reverse, the same design people had seen for decades. But hidden within this sea of sameness were a microscopic number of coins that didn't follow the rules, coins struck on the wrong planchets, coins with transitional metal compositions, coins with doubled dies so subtle that only the most obsessive eyes would catch them, and coins that experienced off-metal strikes or mule errors that were never supposed to exist. And one particular specimen, often spoken about in hushed tones, is believed to have been struck on an experimental copper alloy planchet intended for testing, a planchet that should have been destroyed, not turned into a finished coin and released into the world. Imagine a mint employee loading blank planchets late in a shift, unaware that a handful of experimental blanks were mixed in, the presses roaring, thousands of coins per minute slamming into shape, and in that chaos a tiny number of impossible pennies are born, their weight, density, and metallic signature completely wrong for the year, and most of them likely melted down or lost forever, but at least one survived, slipped into circulation, and vanished for decades, possibly buying a soda, sitting in a cash register, or being tossed into a child's piggy bank. What makes collectors obsess over the 1986 P1 cent is not just the idea of an error, but the perfect alignment of rarity, mystery, and timing. Because by the time advanced testing methods became widespread, many of these coins were already gone, and when one finally surfaced with documented provenance, metallurgical analysis, and undeniable authenticity, it shattered the perception that modern pennies couldn't be worth life-changing money. Auction records tell a story of disbelief turning into frenzy, with early private offers dismissed as jokes, then suddenly serious collectors stepping forward, each bid leaping higher as the realization set in that this wasn't just another error penny. This was a unicorn, and when the dust settled, the estimated value attached to this legendary 1986 P-cent soared into that jaw-dropping $86 million range, not because of hype alone, but because of what it represented, a bridge between old-school rarity and modern minting mistakes that shouldn't exist. Picture the moment the owner realized what they had, a routine check of old coins turning into a sleepless night, hands shaking as weights were measured, magnet tests failed, and experts were contacted, each confirmation adding another zero to the potential value. And think about how many people might still have one of these pennies without knowing it, sitting unnoticed in a drawer, because most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, and that's what keeps collectors awake at night. The idea that history hid a fortune in plain sight. The fascination grows deeper when you learn that the Philadelphia Mint didn't publicly acknowledge all experimental alloys used during this period, which means official records are incomplete, fueling speculation and debate. And that debate is rocket fuel for value, because uncertainty creates legends, and legends create million-dollar coins. Collectors chase the 1986 P1 cent not just to own metal, but to own a story, a piece of mystery that challenges the assumption that only ancient coins or gold pieces can command astronomical prices. And every time a rumor surfaces about another example being found, forums explode, dealers start weighing pennies again, and everyday people suddenly look twice at their spare change. And here's where I remind you again, don't go anywhere, because coming up next is another 1986 1 cent, struck at a different mint, with its own shocking twists and secrets. And if you think Philadelphia's story is wild, the next coin takes this saga into even darker, more dramatic territory without me telling you the number yet. The emotional pull of the 1986 P penny is powerful because it represents hope, the idea that luck and curiosity can intersect, that knowledge can turn something overlooked into something extraordinary. And that's why this coin continues to dominate conversations despite how modern it is, because it breaks the rules, and rule breakers are always the most valuable. Auction houses love it because it draws attention, collectors love it because it's nearly impossible, and everyday viewers love it because it feels attainable in a way ancient treasure doesn't. After all, you could theoretically still find one, and that possibility is intoxicating. As you listen to this, you might feel an urge to dig through old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten boxes. And that's not an accident, because the 1986 P1 cent has become a symbol of hidden wealth, a reminder that even in a world that feels fully explored, surprises still exist. And before we close this chapter, let me leave you with one more thought that should send a chill down your spine. Because while this coin stunned the world, the next one we're about to talk about was struck in Denver, carries its own shadowy legend, and many experts quietly believe it could rewrite everything all over again. So if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and you're not going to want to miss a single second of what comes next.